We had an interesting conversation here. I'll be interested in your thoughts.
Go right ahead.
And, uh, we're all foreign nationals, and they were asking me how long I've been in the United States and my experience. And someone brought up the question with all that's going on. Like
Hmm.
they said, they wonder, does America have at this point right now, a true democracy, or is it an illusionary democracy? And it made me think like
Mhm.
downgrade.
Yeah.
When people are in apathy and they're there for so long. I thought that was an interesting question that I've been pondering since I heard it. I was like, what does a illusionary democracy look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you're going to find as many answers to that question as there are people in the country, because I
Mm,
think everyone has their own kind of unique experience of what's going on, and they're seeing what's going on through whatever filters, biases. We've talked about logical fallacies and all that before on Circle of Brilliance. And so I think that you're going to get, a wide range of answers. But I do think what people would agree upon is that our democracy is currently being tested.
mm,
So there is a strain that's absolutely happening, and how people characterize the content of that strain might be very, very different. But I think it's fair enough that people would say, no, things are being tested, things are being strained. And
Well,
whoever
we're
said
not
there was,
really a democracy. We're a representative republic. We're not a democracy.
yeah, that's true, and that's
Right.
the other aspect of the whole thing, how the country is
Anya.
actually structured, and how people think the country is actually structured are very different things.
mm,
Yes.
So,
And it
yeah,
makes a big difference.
it
It
makes a
makes
huge difference because
Yeah.
you
It-
can't apply the rule set for a pure democracy to what we have here.
Right.
You know, I
You
mean,
can't. You
you really
can't.
have to think about this. And Brian, I know you're a US citizen now, so did you find it challenging to wrap your head around the difference between the state's authority and the federal authority, and who gets to decide what, when, and where? And you got to think about the US as actually being closer to a collective of 50 different little countries.
Right.
mhm, mhm,
And yeah, there might be some things that are taken care of at that federal level just because it makes sense. But the goal from the very beginning was that the federal government would have as little involvement in the way the states operated as could be avoided in any way, shape, or form. So
yeah,
the states are all supposed to be fully independent, and that's where a lot of the conflict comes in from. That's when you hear things like big government and all that. It's like the federal government is not supposed to be involved in a lot of things that people view the federal government as being involved in.
mm,
And so, yeah, it's all a very different sort of a thing. So, but you go back to the Gettysburg Address, and I think that I don't remember the whole thing, but it was 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. We
mhm,
are now engaged in a great war, a great battle, testing whether that resolve can long endure. And that
mm,
was, the US was very often referred to early on as being an experiment. So this was supposed to be something that had not been done anywhere else before. And so maybe, there's growing pains. Relatively
yeah.
speaking, we're a pretty young country among those that have been here for a good long while. We're still a baby.
Right. So still an experiment in many ways.
In many ways, and that's
Yeah.
supposed to be what's one of our advantages are, is that we can come together and talk about our different viewpoints and all that sort of thing and resolve. Unfortunately, then you get people involved, and as we've talked extensively about, when it comes to the change grid, depending on who those people are, where they are on the change grid, who they're trying to influence, and where those people are on the change grid, you can end up having all kinds of chaos and confusion and conflict and any other C word you want to throw in there. But ultimately, at least I hold faith that it'll sort itself out.
Hmm.
It'll sort itself out, because I forget who was quoted as saying that whatever was wrong with the country can be fixed by whatever is right with the country.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
yeah, and anyway, there you go. So that's my 2 cents. Anybody else want to share with Brian what your
Hey,
position
Brian,
is?
Brian,
Yes.
Tom Waltham.
Yes.
This may be apocryphal, just maybe a saying, but supposedly there is a letter from a woman, a French woman, during our Revolutionary War, and Benjamin Franklin was in France. And she asked him at a dinner, so why have you chosen to be a republic and not a democracy? And
Mm.
Franklin said, because a democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what to have for dinner. And a
Mm.
Republican hands that sheep a shotgun.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, if sheep could only have opposable thumbs.
If only.
There you go.
Thank God cats don't, though.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing could have been resolved, but that's very interesting. And so, yeah, Brian, if you really, I don't know how much US history you had to drag yourself through to become a citizen. I've taken the citizenship test just for the fun of it, and it's rather superficial compared to what they dragged us through in school. But I can tell you that there's been no shortage of conflicts, and over the course of time, these labels we use to describe the political parties have pretty much flipped in what their positions are and all that. So you just gotta go, with whatever is happening now, and in what ways is what's happening now good, in what ways is what's happening bad. And what are you going to
Yeah.
do? The bottom line is each and every one of them, unless we choose to become politically active, we each have one vote, and that's it. And so
Mhm.
I often say to people, if the only level of involvement you're going to have is to vote, then quit complaining about everything. Quit talking. Just, you want to influence people, by all means, align yourself with whatever cause you feel most aligns with your values and your beliefs, etc., and go out there and do the work that really needs to be done. But if all you are is a vote and all you're willing to do is vote, well, then, I don't really know that we need to hear all that much from you. You know what I mean? So it's like, just, do your thing. You be you. And
Yeah.
let's let the people that are actually actively involved in figuring this stuff out and getting it all sorted out, let's give them the space that they need to make that happen.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've been going through those four aspects of control. Like, don't want to lose, and you hope to lose for myself,
Yeah.
gain and lose. Because I am dual citizen, but I have been thinking like, it's interesting to be working on these projects in Central and South America because the people are so happy, don't have all the material trappings, that
Yeah.
America
Yeah.
has.
Right.
So I keep thinking like, what am I returning to? I mean, other than, I moved my mom to the States now and my stepfather, but it's like, what am I returning to?
Yeah.
Because I feel quite content here.
Well, and that's one of the great things about being a citizen of a free country, or two free countries, as your case may be, is you get to pick. Where do you want to
Hmm.
live? What do you really want to do? What do you want your lifestyle to be? Lynn and I thought about moving to Panama, but we didn't think that, we've never framed it as moving away from the United States. We just framed it as moving to Panama. We were not trying to
Hmm.
escape anything. We just thought Panama was, an interesting adventure. And then the volcano woke up, and that's too much adventure for me. So, I'd much rather be, frying in the desert.
Well, Brian, my vote would go to you staying here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I'm casting my vote.
Yeah, I
there you
vote that.
go. We've grown
Yeah,
accustomed to.
yeah, the United States has been very good to me, and I, came because I had some plans. Although I was always told my first business venture is prevention as a service model. I was told, oh, that'll never work in the United States. That's not how we make money here. I was
Yeah.
like, making money off healthcare? Is that how we do it here?
Yeah. Well, now you're getting into a whole different world.
Exactly,
That is
exactly.
strange. I worked for a
Well,
hospital
Brian,
for
this
9
is
years.
Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Don't forget to vote overseas.
Yeah. Wherever you
Yeah,
are,
Wherever you are in this world, you can vote in American elections. You have to go to UCAVA in your state.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Miss Linda helped me with that in Florida, because that's my home state is in Florida. So
Well,
Miss
then you
Linda
need to
helped me.
know that Florida just passed a little, I don't know, a rule or whatever, but you have to re-request it again. Even if you've requested it before, anyone who wants an absentee ballot has to request it fresh again.
Yeah, Florida passed 365 laws since I've been.
Well, I'm just saying, you got to watch these things because things do change, and a lot of it is controlled at the state level, and you got to know how things operate inside of your state so you don't miss a deadline or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Okay, anywho, I'm more than happy, Brian, if you want to do a deep dive on this subject on the Circle of Brilliance, that would be a great thing to do. We have talked a lot about how different philosophies play themselves out of the change grid. We've talked about how different religions plot themselves out of the change grid. I've got no problem whatsoever talking about how different political structures around the world position their citizenry on the change grid. So if I'm operating under whatever the definition happens to be of their political structure, well, what does that do? So and that would help us understand if I'm operating under, say, the conditions of Cuba, am I likely to have a different distribution of the population across the change grid than I would if I was in Switzerland or wherever the case may be? So it could be very interesting to see, because keep in mind, I've said this umpteen times, I'll say it till my dying day, everything is tension management. And so that means government is tension management. Politics is tension management. Any of these kind of philosophical angles or whatever, it's all tension management. And our only goal here in the world of ChangeWorks is for people to understand how that tension management is playing out, so that you can decide how you want to participate. Do you want to get involved? Do you want to avoid it? What drama do you want to enter into, and what dramas do you want to avoid? But it's all tension management. It's all an attempt for a group of people to, you can use the word manage, you can use the word govern, but the real word is control other people. And that's definitely a circle.
That might be an interesting thing to explore, because I
Yeah.
think what captured my attention about the conversation, I tend to be an optimist because I can essentially go anywhere and
Yep.
fit in. That's just me.
Yep.
We were trained that way in Zulu, we say sawubona, which is I greet your humanity. So that goes beyond just simple hello.
Yep.
But I think the conversation was shaped around what their ideas of democracy is in terms of how people look to the United States for that model. And so I think that's kind of what I picked up on.
Yeah, well, but again, this is the oracle of the self, so we really should get to the subject of the call.
Yeah.
But what I will say to you is that I have met people from all over the world because of my business travels and all that sort of stuff. And all of them have an opinion about the United States. But their opinion is based on information that is, at best, incomplete and inaccurate.
Right.
Similarly, I might have an opinion about another country, but at least I'm willing to acknowledge that whatever opinion I have is grounded on virtually nothing, a tiny fraction of whatever might be out there. And so the real thing we have to understand is how we feel about our country and how we want our country to evolve. And, then we have to be adult enough to be able to have conversations that can be very difficult at times.
Right.
But if we could all just spend some time realizing that we have far more in common than we have different, if we could do what we've talked about in the Circle of Brilliance about finding common ground and all that good sort of stuff, maybe there wouldn't be so much conflict. But that's a conversation again for more for the circle. To be attacking. Yeah.
I think it starts with what we're exploring here, the oracle of self.
Well, it does, but because people who are listening to these recordings may very well have little, if any, background in the tension management techniques. That's why I try to keep the Monday call more educational on core content. And then we use the Circle of Brilliance Tuesday and Thursday to talk about issues and do a deeper dive and explore things that people might find a bit uncomfortable to explore. You know, the circle is all about word desensitization, philosophical desensitization, so that we can look at things objectively, dispassionately, and just recognize what's going on the mechanical side of things when it comes to the tension management that's playing out in there. So all that being said, this has been a perfectly fine discussion because I haven't labeled the call yet. So technically, we haven't started. So
Steve, before you do that, can I offer a thought?
please do.
And it's in response to what you just shared about differences and similarities.
Mhm.
Some years ago, there was an incident in Florida at a high school that was racial, and it was between the white kids and the Hispanic kids at the school.
Mhm.
And reading the article, one of the administrators were quoted as saying, if we can just get the kids to understand and think about the things they have in common, we wouldn't have this conflict. And when I read that, I thought, that's interesting, because the conflict is not around similarities. Their conflict is around ways in which they differ and whether or not those differences are valued and respected.
Mhm.
And so when I think about our conversation and our work around productive tension, that fits, our conversation fits for me in trying to help bring understanding to that kind of a situation of differences and similarities. And what in my work is too often there's too much discomfort and fear around exploring and understanding differences. It's much more comfortable to go in line with what we have in common because there's no tension and conflict there.
Right. And I think the other part about establishing the commonalities is that it allows people to feel a little bit more comfort, trust with the individuals they are interacting with. So when you realize that you're not 100% different from one another, you know, you don't need to be so polarized. You don't need to think that you're at one extreme and the other people are at the other extreme, that there's no gray area, there's no in between. I think that that's the extremist thinking is where the real danger is. And when you can get people to speak their truth and say, well, let's start with what we all agree on, you're going to find that the lion's share of so-called issues, this disconnect, this disparity, are going to vanish because you're going to find out, no, people really do share very strong values with one another. They do have similar priorities. And once we can get that there, we can say, now can we talk about the issues that we're feeling differently about? And then resolve it from there. Again, I'm hijacking this call, but long ago we did a series of programs on word desensitization, on it was a desensitization thing that I was hired to do for a very large corporation, a specific team of people inside of that corporation who needed to become very diplomatic very quickly. And so we did this exercise. I'm sure you guys have done this sort of thing before, called Take a Stand. And you have everybody stand up in a line, and then you put forth an issue and say, if you're in agreement with it, go to the right. If you're in disagreement, go to the left. If you're someplace in between, then stand someplace in between that you think is really what's going on. And then you have the opportunity to ask anyone who is anywhere on there how they chose to stand where they're standing. And the whole point of that exercise is you find out that a lot of this judgment that people have about one another is happening because they are judging you based on their beliefs instead of understanding your beliefs. Once they understand your beliefs, they may very well recognize that you're perfectly legit, that if they were where you are, they would feel the same way.
Mm,
And
interesting.
so this is what it's all about. It's about people developing the ability to detach themselves from the emotions that are involved all the way around. Um, and go to that center of the change grid, get other people to join them in the center of the change grid, where now we can all just say, we're talking about a specific issue. And I don't need to say who's right and who's wrong. I'm interested in learning why you think you're right. Tell me about your life experiences, and don't just parrot what other people have told you. If you're going to hold this belief, then this belief has to have some substance in it. You can't say, I believe it because my family always believed it. That's a cop out. So no, why do you hold this belief? And if you do, great. And so I think that when people start to share that, you end up having a whole lot of people who stop arguing and go, no, if that was really my belief, I can understand exactly why you're of the mindset you are. So how do we then say, if we've got a whole bunch of people with different viewpoints about this particular issue, yet we can understand everyone's viewpoint, we still have to resolve the situation. So then what do you do? What do you do? And should it be the majority wins? Because if the majority always wins, then the minority may never have a chance for anything that could positively impact theirs. So we got to find a better way to do this. But anyway, I know I'm babbling, but it's all tension management. It's all going to boil down to tension management one way or another. So
Very interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well. All right, let me go ahead and label the call. We'll get into what I really want to introduce for today. And that, by the way, I never mind going off on our tangents, having those discussions. I'm a very big believer that we need to pay attention to where people find their tension. And if someone has an issue that's causing them some tension, they want to bring it forward, I want to encourage that to happen. How much time we're going to spend digesting it or exploring it at that particular moment, well, fine, there's some other factors that are involved in that. But based on who's on the call right now, I'm perfectly comfortable with having the discussion that we just had. That being said, I do know a lot of people who listen to these recordings, and I think that what we've just talked about could be very, what's my word for them, distracting from why they're listening to the recording. So yeah, so that's all. That's my little thought about the whole thing.
You're
Okay,
afraid they're gonna be upgrid?
what's that?
You're afraid we're gonna send them upgrid?
Way up grid, and the confused mind tends to do two things. Number one, escape the cause of the confusion. And number two, they don't take any action. So it's something that either paralyzes them in the moment or scares them to the point that they escape. So we've got freezing can happen, and we've got fleeing can happen. And I really want the Oracle itself to be 99% educational. And I do believe that people, when they learn enough about tension management, and good grief, today is 27 hours for you guys. You've learned plenty about tension management. Well, now you can start introducing some real life situations and say, this subject in the hands of people who don't understand tension management could cause so much fallout, so much argument. That it's not, you just can't have that discussion. The price tag is too high. On the other hand, if you've got people who really understand tension management, and you can say, let's look at this situation from that tension management lens, I think that they're far more able to stay in their cortex rather than get pulled into their limbic system and, have everything that comes along with that occur. Yeah. Thoughts about that, anybody?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think this exploring oneself seems to be difficult for some people in
Yes.
general. So they'll
Right.
just kind of deflect, as to not deal with the real issue at hand, but you're projecting outwardly. And I think we have a society that's hijacked with this exteroception, as it's called. So they're
Yes.
not paying attention interoceptive to
Right,
these
right.
internal states.
And that's one of the biggest points of the Oracle itself. It's like these voices in your head, are they really yours? Or are you just parroting? Are you just accepting it? It's like, what's really you? And I think a lot of people have lost themselves in
Mhm.
the messaging that they've been inundated with. And that's fine if they resonate with the message, more power to them. But if they think about those, go like, where did that come from? Why do I believe that? Well, then we've at least opened someone's thoughts to reclaiming their true self.
Mhm.
Okay, anywho, let me go ahead and label the call. So hi, everybody. It's T Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Oracle of the Self. Today is session number 27, I do believe. I do want to show you a couple of things I've been working on and give you guys some insights into what I'm hoping to do so you can let me know if it's going to meet whatever your needs are. So I'm going to slide something in. I've been working on a page for posting up all of the videos and all of the transcriptions and whatever other materials we use during the discussion on a single page. Now you guys can get to this page if you just go to changeworksystem.com/OOTS, Oracle of the Self. So changeworksystem.com/ in all capitals OOTS, Oracle of the Self. You'll arrive at this page. I haven't put any security on it, password protection, none of that yet, because I'm just building it out. And honestly, doing the password stuff from the start of things just makes it more complicated than it needs to be. So anyway, so this page is live, but this is all that's there right now. So I wanted to put up a link to the video. So this was coaching session 25, 2 of them ago. And I don't like how it looks, because this is now an embedded link to the video. If I click on this, and I will, it's going to start playing that video. Now, interestingly enough, if someone watches this video while it's embedded in the website, I get no credit for it as far as monetization goes. And as much as I love training you guys, sooner or later, I need to monetize this in order to have it make sense. So for us to, to be doing. And so I think the workaround is I'm just going to put the thumbnail for this particular lesson here. And then when you click on the thumbnail, it'll just take you to the YouTube page where this video resides anyway. And then I get credit for it, as opposed to it being watchable here. The download for the transcription, that's an active link right now. If you click on that, you'll actually get the transcription. I was talking about, it downloads the transcription for you, but I was chatting with someone, they said, it is a transcription, but it doesn't have any of your copyright information. It doesn't tell anybody. So I need to add a paragraph at the front of every one of these transcriptions that just says that you need to understand that this is a raw transcription, raw, unedited, that was generated by artificial intelligence. So it may contain, mistakes, etc. Nevertheless, we consider this to be our intellectual property, our copyrighted material. And so while we encourage you to read it and use it for your own personal, motivations or whatever, you can't really copy all these things and turn it into your own book or something like that. We have to do a little protection there. And I hadn't even thought about doing that. So I'm going to do that before I start uploading the rest of them. And then over here, I just thought maybe I should put some sort of a little abbreviation of what this session is actually covering. So that's what I'm doing. So I am going to flesh this out, making those 2 changes I did mention. And you guys should be able to see all 26 lessons listed here by the next time we talk. So yeah, any thoughts, comments about what this resource page is supposed to be about for you guys?
Very nice.
No? All right. Okay, good. All right,
I
fine.
think it'll be great if I can figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just remember, now it's a hidden link. That's the only thing. That's why I'm telling you, you have to type in changeworksystem.com / capital O, capital T, capital S, Oracle of the Self, because there's no way to get to it through our navigation.
I made a very careful note, believe me.
Yeah. At a certain point, it'll be password protected because, we really want anyone who's going to be going to the Oracle and give this kind of thing to at least be a member of our community. The membership is free. But without them becoming a member, I've got no way of knowing who they are, no way of contacting them. And you can tell me if you think that I'm wrong, but I think that there is value to what it is that I'm doing. And I don't think it's a big ask for people to let me have their email address. So once in a blue moon, I might be able to talk about something that could, bring in a little revenue for us, So yeah, anyway, there you go. That's the oracle there. All right, I'm going to slide that out of the way. And I'm going to get back into our core content. So last time around, we finished talking about those 4 root causes of human struggle and failure. So we talked about the whole idea of unaware, unable, unwilling, unsuitable. You guys got plenty of resources you can go back to if you want to revisit that subject. So you figure now where we are on the change grid, scratch that. Now where we are on the path tells us it's time to change the step we're taking. So we've done the current situation. We've looked at the desired situation and we put it through those 4 aspects of control. What do you hope to gain? What do you hope to lose? What do you not want to gain? What do you not want to lose? We've subjected the situation to those root cause analysis. So what's stopping you? Is it about awareness, ability? Is it about willingness? Is it about suitability? What's really going on? We have these all answered. Now, I think you guys can all understand that the next question we have to answer is, all right, so what are we going to do? So knowing that these obstacles exist, knowing that this is our true desired situation, all mapped out, knowing where we're starting from, what are we actually going to do? What is the action plan that we're going to be taking in order to, get to wherever we want to be? And so a lot of this can be done in a very superficial kind of way. So if you found out that one of the obstacles is that you need to, how about you need to buy a particular tool for your business? You need a printer, or you need a laptop, or you need a whatever. Well, what's the solution? If you've revealed that to get to your desired situation, you need to have this object in order to help you be able to get the job done, well, what do you need to do? What's your action item?
And look at printers.
Yeah, go buy the thing. All right. So a lot of it is very straightforward. So practical obstacles can be overcome by practical solutions. Little straightforward aspects of your goal can be addressed in very straightforward sorts of ways. So remember, we said obstacles can be obstacles of fact, but it could also be obstacles of the mind. And so we'll be doing a deeper dive in that a bit later, but I need a different set of solutions to deal with obstacles of the mind than I need to worry about these practical sorts of things. Now, all right, so, but let's say that we did a really good job and we came up with, here's the solution. I'm going to do this. 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 One might think that you are done, but in fact, you are not. And so let's look about how the solution process comes together. Now, to have this be as meaningful as I want it to be right now, I do want to acquaint you guys with this little activity sheet. You've probably seen this, or you have access to this in umpteen different little forms. So we've designed it different ways for different purposes. But bottom line is, you need an activity list. That activity list is going to be populated with several different things. Now, let me chat this over to you guys just so I know for certain you have it. So over here, there you go. It's coming to everybody. That's this activity list. This is, by the way, one of the things I would put up on that resource page so people can just get to it whenever they want. Okay, so in order to understand where these activities come from, let's go back to the steps of the path and see what's really going on here. So if during the path walk, I said, well, my goal is to gain blah, blah, blah. My goal is to lose blah, 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 whatever that is, I can actually take that exact statement and put it on the activity list. So let's say the goal is to lose 20 pounds. I could say activity number 1 is lose 20 pounds. All right, does that seem straightforward enough, obvious enough? I could just do a direct statement. So, and if someone said that, well, my real problem for not losing those 20 pounds is that I am unwilling to give up the half pound of chocolate that I would like to eat at each meal. And so, well, now we got to go like, all right, so let's go back to the activity list. The activity list might there be overcome my addiction to chocolate. All right, you guys with me? So you're just you're populating.
Yeah,
This-
except that I can't really follow thinking of chocolate as a bad thing.
well,
So-
and I
Yeah,
have difficulty doing that as well.
Thank
Difficulty doing
you.
that as well. I can get rid of a lot of things that are in the sweet category,
But
but
not-
chocolate speaks to me.
Yeah.
All right. So we're just saying, like, ultimately you need to have a list of what you're going to do, and whether it looks like a to-do list or whether it's a very detailed project plan that someone, developed doing all the techniques you learned in project management. One way or another, it's going to boil down to activities. Now, some of those activities may arise, just a second, from the green step. So the goals might be put on it. Some of it could come from the obstacles. Well, even if you come up with something that's a solution, I mean, everything that you come up with as a solution can be put on the activity list. Now, if you were a regular kind of client, and I come in as a consultant, I say to you, based on where you're starting from, where you're trying to go, and what you want to gain and lose and not gain and not lose, and all the obstacles that we identified that are obstacles of fact and obstacles of the mind, here are the activities that would be involved in you solving this issue and getting to where you want to go. I can tell you that the vast majority of clients would consider that to be a very valuable service and something that has helped them tremendously to get clarity around what's going on. Because I'm the one who came through and said, let's not just come up with a solution that doesn't factor in the obstacles. Let's not come up with a solution that's just based on some whim. Let's do the real work of current situation, desired situation, obstacles to come up with solutions that really can address those obstacles so you can get to your desired situation based on your current starting point. You're with me? Clients would go like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And now I'm saying to you, well, it's a step in the right direction, but it is not particularly actionable because I'm missing a big chunk of information. What big chunk of information am I missing?
Barriers and solutions.
You go right ahead and spit out some. Tell me, tell me, tell me. So I'm saying, like, I know where you're at. I know where you want to go. I know these are your obstacles. Here's all the action steps necessary for you to get rid of those obstacles and get to your desired situation. Why am I, the consultant, saying to you, my job is not over just because I tell you the solution? My job, and forget even there's another step, my job in this solution is not just to identify activities. What am I missing? What are they missing?
Well, the
Motivation.
activity, motivation, but it also has to match like to what they actually are willing to do and can do, right?
Oh,
Because a lot of times when I see, like, even when I set goals for myself, and I'm, where the human mind can only see but so far. It's kind of like driving a car. You can know your way home. You can only see so far down the road. So a lot of times, even like when people are trying to lose weight, they're given that mandate and say they have to do it for even health reasons. And so they go to the gym and sign up, but they didn't consider all that's included in that, like the task itself, like all the mental, emotional, tyranny that comes with that. And so they'll check out. They'll just stop.
So what you're describing there is that when we start to put together these action items, we may very well, very early on, hear people say they're never going to do that. So they are letting us know that that activity has its own willingness issue.
Or they may be saying, they may be identifying something else that is, they think the problem is, but the problem is not that they need to lose weight. It's that there's something, another obstacle.
Okay. And
Way.
so this is what I wanted to get to, is that our work isn't done because we've just given people an action list. Our work is done when we take those action items and subject each one of them to these earlier steps. Right? Just to go like, wait a second, you would think that here's your solution and everyone's going to embrace it and go forward and do it. What's the likelihood of that actually happening?
No, not.
Well, it depends on their motivation. Depends on
It
how
depends on their motivation. It
they really
depends
nailed
on,
the problem.
yeah, I'm still listening for one word. It depends on where they are.
On the change grid.
Very good.
The attention, yeah.
That's
'Cause
the
it
whole
seems
point.
like our attention spans are waning because so many people have too many competing priorities in their mind.
Exactly. And rather than take this line item by line item and subject it to deeper discussion, we say, now take your activity list that you've just put together. Where am I at? Where's my list? Da, ba, da, 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 da. That's Form A, Form B, there it is. Let's take everything you've put on this activity list, and now let's see how people plot on the change grid. Now, again, this was designed in the old days. This was only a paper and pencil tool. You can still do that. You can still write down which the level of ability is, a level of challenge, and then you can go right ahead if you want and plot it on the change grid. Where's my change grid? Over here? Yeah, you can plot it on the change grid and there you go. But things are automated now, and so you don't necessarily have to build the activity list on paper. You could build it on the online system. So I'll get to that in just a second. But nevertheless, we want to go ahead and say, these are all the activities. The moment I can see the change grids, I'll tell you which ones have still got obstacles that need to be overcome. I'll tell you which ones are line up with the goals and which ones are going to go against it. The change grid is going to give me far more information than even doing that little backward visit to the steps along the path is likely to give me. So when it comes to efficiency, elegance, etc., I want to let that solution set. So let's go back to that. Fill this solution set with anything and everything. Give me a big, robust laundry list. I don't care. Just flesh it all out, flesh it all out. But before anyone takes any action or anything, we're going to say, and now let's look at the change grid. Now, why? I've said this before, but honestly, I do lose track of who I said it to and under what circumstances. But if I said to you, the change grid is designed to answer 4 very specific questions about each of the activities we're looking at. So tell me, what are those 4 questions the change grid is going to answer for you? Anybody throw out 1, 2?
Your level of tension, whether you're upgrid, downgrid, ingrid.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be revealed. Very, very good. And based on that level of tension, 1 or more of these 4 questions is going to be answered. So yep. On the right track for sure. All right.
How much support a person's going to need?
Yay, that's the 4th one. So let me go ahead and review for you guys. What are these 4 steps or these 4 questions? The change grid, yes.
Can you say the 4 again?
I'm going to. Here we go. So the 4 questions the change grid is designed to answer is, number 1, how ready is this individual or this population, if we're doing more of a group kind of a profile, how ready is this person to do that activity, to do what needs to be done? How ready are they to do it? The second question is, how engaged are they in doing it? Okay, now just because we have the ability to do something doesn't mean that we're actively engaged in that activity. So the activity can definitely be something that's part of the solution, and I might be ready to do it, but just because I'm ready doesn't mean I'm engaged. We'll talk about these things in detail in just a second, how we're getting this information or getting these answers to these questions. So how ready are they to do it? How engaged are they in doing it? The third question, how likely is this person to actually follow through and do what needs to be done? So what's the likelihood that they're actually going to do the task, complete the task? And then the 4th question, what type and level of support are they going to require in order to get them on track and keep them on track?
So is this TV uh task and relationship tension? Is this how that shows up on the
Yeah,
change
we're going to
grid?
play with it to see exactly where we're getting it from. But I just want you guys to know that's what the change grid is actually answering as far as useful, practical information. In fact, you be this group of people's boss, and I've just given you this activity list, or let's say another consultant gave them this whole list of what their to-do items are and say, this is how you're going to solve it. This is what you need to do. That consultant thinks the job is done. I believe the real work can now begin.
Mm.
So, yeah, we need to know where someone is and where they want to go and what their obstacles are. And honestly, we do a deeper dive into that than any other methodology I know of. And if there is a methodology, you bring it to the circle of brilliance and we can see how well it actually fits. But you guys have, particularly those who don't have a background in the human development industry, you have no idea how many people consider their work to be done just because they tell you, here's what you need to do. Now, we believe that ultimately the success that your change initiative is going to have is completely in the hands of the individuals. It's got nothing to do with how beautiful your form looks. It only has to do with how are these people? And the questions are, how ready are these people to do what needs to be done for you to get to that outcome? How engaged are they in doing it? Do they want to do it? Someone brought up motivation. Are they motivated to do it? Are they engaged in doing it at a physical level, an emotional level, an intellectual level? Are they engaged in doing the task? How likely are they to actually follow through and get it done? And what type and level of support is going to be required if you have any hope whatsoever of getting to where they're trying to go? This even becomes a really big distinction when it comes to selling coaching services. So those of you that are working as coaches of any level, a lot of coaches think that, number one, their job ends, as I've said before, when they come up with the action plan, because ultimately they really do believe that the client in and of themselves is responsible for whatever their outcome happens to be. I don't disagree with that. But I do believe that a coach who understands tension management can take things much deeper and give people a much more realistic a glimpse, understanding into what lies before them. And so that's why we say we got to do a change grid. We need to do a change grid. Just to finish this off, we've always said that the change grid is unique among any kind of a psychometric tool because it is descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. So when I have the ability to look at my change grid or look at someone's change grid, I understand what's going on. It's describing what's going on for me in some very clear detail. It's not only describing the situation, it's giving me a predictive element. Based on where someone plots on the change grid, I can tell you whether or not they have, now this goes back to, I think, what Brian was bringing up, enough productive tension and enough drive, enough task tension, enough drive, whatever words we want to use. If they don't have enough, and the change grid's going to tell me exactly how much they have, I can tell you with scary accuracy the likelihood of anything actually ever happening. So this is why I can tell you when we do coaching and consulting where we're involved with a group of people or in a relationship sort of a setting, I can tell you very quickly based on where I place someone on the change grid, based on the information I'm being given, I can tell you whether or not trying to change this situation is something that's going to be possible, logical, or if even pursuing it is just folly. So, you know, we could tell you a lot. So it has a very powerful predictive element to it. But what's I think most important is that it's prescriptive. It tells me exactly what kind of support and what level of support I'm going to need to give that person in order to help them get on track and stay on track for reaching whatever the outcome happens to be. So those of you who have system access to the ChangeWorks system, I hope you're using it for this purpose because that's what it was intended to do. So, all right. So
Too good. Way
yeah,
too
well,
good. These 4 questions should be part of every shaping of a patient summary. like literally, there is this phenomenon called narrative medicine. So, again, that's the story behind what a patient is experiencing. And just these four questions, just like, boom, just hit me right there.
Right, right, right. And I think that it's also a very powerful thing when you're talking to someone who's trying to make a decision about who they want to work with, who they want to follow, or whatever the case may be. I say to them that while they may not choose me as their provider, I'd like to equip them to do the best shopping job they can. And one of the things I want them to ask any provider is, will your outcome, when you consider your work done, which of the following four questions will you be able to answer for us? And it's amazing how many of them are going to say, well, our tool, our methodology is all descriptive. And so no, we don't make predictions because we don't control the variables, and we don't do a prescription because you've already hired managers and leaders. They should know how to do whatever it is that needs to be done. And so I say, well, do your people have that ability? Really? Because if they had that ability, I think we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. So there's a disconnect going on there. So anyway, obviously, I from the Oracle self perspective, I think it's really important for you guys as individuals to know that just because you've done your path walk, and I don't want to minimize this tool. This is a very powerful tool to help you get your thoughts sorted out and explored. You're going to come up with all kinds of solutions. In fact, you might start populating this solution section when you're talking about the desired situation, or maybe even something in the current situation might be something you say, I want to look at that on a change grid. You start populating this list from the very beginning, but by the time you're done, you're going to end up with a rather robust list of things you can do a deeper dive. I would tell you as a coach that it is premature for you to go and implement on any aspects of this solution.
Interesting.
Because
I wonder, is this the disconnect in the self-help industry? It's a billion
because
industry.
no one, yeah, it's very difficult to find people in the human development industry that are ready, willing, and able to do the hard work. So because the hard work is ultimately going to be, success is measured based on that. And there's a lot of companies out there who basically say, our job is to create awareness for you. Or our job is to create awareness and take care of some skill set. But we've got little, if anything, to do with when and how and with whom you implement whatever we've just done at this retreat or whatever the case may be. So it's amazing how many just say, oh no, our work is done. We've told you what you need to do. If you go and do it, good things will happen. But if you don't do it, you're not going to get the outcome. Bye-bye now. And it's like, no, this is where the real work of change begins. And so we need to be able to put together a change grid for that solution. Now, again, to keep this very basic, there's nothing stopping you guys from listing your activities on a piece of paper. And there's nothing stopping you from asking yourself on a scale of 0 to 12, it's the same direction. So how do you rate your ability to get that activity done? How challenging is it going to be? I would even want you to think about importance, although we use it differently when it's on paper than we do when it's automated. But nevertheless, I'd be curious to know, how important do you really think this is? And we could even do this in the old-fashioned days. We used to have individuals fill this out, and then we would manually compile them into group profiles and hand draw all the change grids that would be the result. That was a heck of a lot of work, but I should say that was a heck of a lot of billable work. So it was all okay, but yeah, it's all automated now. But you can do it this way, and then you can go and you can plot your answers on the change grid. Where am I at? You can plot them on the change grid, and based on even what you've learned so far, you know that if an activity plots in a particular place, you know what that means, and we're going to put that to the test in a half of a jiffy here. Now, most of you on this call have access to the ChangeWorks system online. And so let me just briefly show you where you would do this. So from our website, you would click on access the system. You would need to log in. Just a second. You would need to log in. Now I'm an administrator, obviously, so I've got a different or an additional set of capabilities that you guys would have. But most people who have the most basic kind of access to the system would just click My Personal Change Grid. And this is the access that costs people $5 a month or $50 a year. And so, you know, if they want to be able to do this, because it keeps track of everything for you, it's got some real features. Well, you would just click add an activity and type in whatever activity it happens to be. Anybody throw me an activity, any old activity. What do you got to do? Any one of you, Tom, Anja, what do you got to do?
An activity?
Go to the gym.
Yeah. All right, go to the gym. Now, as you get more and more skilled at phrasing activities, I would say to you, is going to the gym the mission critical part? Is the act of physically just going to the gym? Is that what
No.
really is going to make the difference? Or do you need to do something once you get there?
Gotta go inside the building.
Okay, now I'm inside the building. Is that going to give me my outcome, or what do I need to do?
Yeah,
to
gotta do the exercise.
Well, kind of, because I like to visit with people.
All right, well, then that's fine, because activity number 2 could be meet your social requirements while at the gym. Our point is that as you guys are getting, and this is really for the professionals more than for those of you who are using for self-application, I'm saying to you, let's not be general when we can be specific. So is it going to the gym, or is it really about completing
Get
my,
my cardio, get my core,
my cardio, right, my
my
core,
weightlifting in.
et cetera, exactly. You guys can just add those things. And then you can very quickly say, so let me do this, my core training. All right, so you can say, well, how big of a task is that? On a scale of 0 to 12, with 0 being microscopic and 12 being impossible to see in your field of vision, how big of a task is that?
I can't wait to do it. I love it.
All right, that's what the change grid's going to reveal.
Oh,
How big is it? So I'm going to imagine it's a half an hour or an hour.
oh, how much
Or
time?
how long is your core training? How big of a task is
Half
that?
an
Half
hour.
an hour.
Okay, and so would you say, relatively speaking, that's at the low end of the scale, moderate end of the scale, high end of the scale?
Moderate.
Well, compared to who?
And what?
Compared to you, it's all in your schedule.
Oh,
So we say
that
how
might
big it is. How
be-
big is it in your world?
It's huge in my world.
geez.
Sorry.
It's wait, it's huge.
I got excited about that and shouted in Tom's ear. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, okay. It's not huge. It's a half an hour. So, all right. So let's just give it a number. I don't care what the number is. What's your ability to complete your core training?
Getting better every time.
Oh,
Okay. I need a number between 0 and 12.
I'd say
12.
12.
12 means
Yeah,
you've
she
mastered
finishes it every time we're there.
Okay, so give yourself a 12. Wonderful. How challenging is it for you to complete that core training?
12.
Okay, all right.
No, I have 4, I guess. 5 maybe. Because I'm
4?
really motivated. So that really rocks
Oh,
it.
well, okay, you can keep saying that, but the change grid's going to tell you something above and beyond that, in addition to that.
Huh.
All right,
Well,
how
maybe
important is it?
12.
12, there we go. Now we could build the whole list. You can add as many activities as you want, and you can edit them, and you can, delete them, remove them, whatever. But what you really are doing is just saving your work. So the next time you go to the change work system, it has your entire activity list waiting for you. So we go view the change. Oh, sorry, got to click the activity, view the change grid. Okay, you're plotting on the border between apathy and power apathy. On that. Now, again, you guys at this stage should be able to tell me what that means. And by the way, you can change the background up here. You can just change it and say, well, no, show me the engagement rings instead. All right, so that's where I'm as far as engagement goes. What energy am I using? So it'll show you what you're still basically an driven analytical about that. And so, or you can just say, look, I know what I'm talking about. I don't need to see it layer by layer. Just show me the composite and let's do what we got to do. So, so you can always change the background image as you're doing that. So Anja, what I'm saying to you is that it is true that you have a very high ability to do your core training. But the core training that you're doing right now is a 4 size-wise, or scratch that, as a 4 as far as challenge goes. Now, if it's become part of how you go about doing things, this section of the change grid is very good about doing things that are more autopilot. This is where habits live. This is where routines exist because we figured out all the puzzles. That's moved us down grid. We ended up coming up with a solution and we're continuing to exercise that solution, in this case, quite literally. And that's all really, really fine and dandy, fine and dandy, fine and dandy. Now, gifted students question, do you think there is any problem with where Anja is plotting on the change grid as far as doing her core training? Anybody? You be the coach, be the consultant.
You said, is there a problem?
Would you say that there is any issue, any opportunity, any something, or should we just settle and go like, okay, this is done. We don't even need to talk to her about where she's plotting activity number 1.
No, I would like to know like the what kind of outcome are you trying to achieve? Because if you're just doing it to check off the list, then you probably will just stay there. But if you're looking to level up, then you probably need to shift.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense because, and Susan, you've unmuted. What would you like to throw in?
I just say she needs to raise her level.
All right, this is what we're saying. If I'm going to provide her with any kind of insight, guidance, whatever, or again, Anja, because this is the oracle of the self, this plotting should stimulate you to ask the question, does this meet my needs? Is this reaching my goals? Or do I need to do one of these upgrade maneuvers? So let me show you those for just a second.
Like raising a standard or something. That's what I'm doing for like my training.
Increase the standards against which you're measuring that performance, or change the task in some way, perhaps a different set of exercise or whatever the case may be. Now, we're not here to tell you you have to do that. We're telling you that based on what your grid looks like, you have a very strong capacity right now for moving the bar up.
Either that or I'm delusional and I'm underestimating the challenge because it's very difficult for me to do my core workout. It's very difficult, but by God, doing it.
And see, now we view the change grid as being a tool of conversation. And so now, again, it's oracle of the self. So this is a conversation you would be having with you. We tend to accept our clients at face value, although everyone on the call who's actually certified would tell you that the moment someone rates something as a 12, we have a big question because we believe that there is no such thing as a 12 in reality. So that people can be an 11, but there's always room to get better. You can always increase your ability to do something.
Delusional.
Well, no, I know delusion.
No, she's comfortable.
Scream, no, it's comfortable. This is all fine. That's not that.
Yeah.
If anything, what you're doing is polishing the apple.
Right. Isn't that the spot of learning?
Well, yeah. There's
an opportunity for learning.
Right. What we say is that whenever someone moves down grid, mastery lives down grid. The pursuit of mastery is a wonderful thing. The achievement of mastery is cause for a quick celebration and then ask the question, now what? So when we're looking at someone who's plotting down grid, we know that we are looking at untapped potential. Maybe something that an unmet mission, whatever it is, a new goal, a new way of doing things. We're looking at that untapped. But all of us as change agents also know that this individual, or we'll just call her Anja, is under no obligation to make any sort of change in her life that she does not want to make. And so we can say, hey, you've got all kinds of untapped potential. She could say, I'm perfectly fine with things where I am. All righty then. Move on. So Anja, it is true that this might trigger you to go, wait a second. It really is more challenging than that. And so let's go ahead and revisit this and say, all right, if it's not a 4, then what is it?
Tom says I'm at an 8. I have to agree.
Okay,
it's very difficult, but I don't admit it to myself because I'm just doing it.
Well, and that's all fine, because let me tell you where he's coming from and where you're coming from. What I just did was I changed the challenge rating to 8, and then I'm going to ask it to save your work and then to go ahead and show this again. You don't always have to click save your work, but I'm paranoid about losing stuff. So I always click on save work. And I do want you guys to get comfortable looking at the composite diagram. And so what you've just done is you've just now moved up to being a driven analytical driver. So that's a very different mindset where you're going to go in there. And while you know you can do it, I know you can do it because you plotted your ability as being much greater than the challenge requires. So you've got an ability of 12, a challenge of 8. That means you have 1.5 times the ability that this challenge currently requires. So can you do it? Absolutely. Is it going to be particularly easy? No, it's going to be what it's always been for you because you've done this particular workout before. And depending on a lot of other factors, like did you eat? Did you get enough rest? How are you feeling in general? It might feel more difficult on one day than the next, but bottom line, we know that you're physically capable of doing it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so you're going to go out there and you're going to basically attack it. Look where you are in terms of engagement rings. Let's just look at that for a second. How engaged are you in doing it? You're on the brink between engagement and execution. It's like, get out. And by the way, had you said, all right, fine, my ability is not a 12, but you know what? It's an 11. I can do this all day long. Then I would say, okay, fine, we'll scoot you in. But you know what? You're still in the same spot. Energetically, you're still fully engaged on the edge of execution. This is what you're all about. You'll go there and get it over and done with. Let's make it all happen. And so that's fine. Now, that being said, the change grade would still give you the counsel that you have greater capability than, or you could tackle greater challenge than the one that you're facing. Do you need to? Do you want to? Those are different questions for you to decide. But the change grade would say that you have the capacity to take on a higher level of challenge than the one you're currently performing at right here.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Tom, does that resonate with what your thoughts are? Anja, does it resonate with your thoughts? Do we
Mine
cover?
are too, yes,
Yeah.
because I just increased it and my goal, and in the back of my mind, I keep thinking I should come back and do this again. I should do it twice. I should do my core workout twice. That's my goal. to
Yeah,
eventually
twice
make
per
it-
workout.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. And so think about what you're acknowledging here is that whatever you were doing before that, you got really, really good at, and the challenge went down, down, down. And by the way, your ability did go up. If I put you on a totally different core workout that's going to involve different movements, different equipment, whatever, your perceived ability may shrink down a couple of points temporarily while you figure out whatever this new movement really is. Like last night we were talking about dance movements.
Mhm.
You know, at a certain point in time, they're going to become, expert deployment. But for a while, you go like, "Why is this not working? I got to do what?" And so you figure it out. So for a while, your perceived ability shrinks down, or your perceived challenge goes up, and you work it all out. But sooner or later, you're going to end up back down here. Well, when you're looking at something like something that's so required for your health, and I'm going to slip downgrade sooner or later. Even if I make myself go do it, I'm going to slip down. And so rather than being engaged in keeping myself as fit as I can, I continue to have the intention to keep myself as fit as I can. But, and then maybe that'll slip down to awareness. What I liked about what you said was that you went ahead and changed the routine yourself. You're asking yourself, do I need to do it twice? What you're actually saying in tension management terms is that my level of ability has become greater than the level of challenge to such a point that I am no longer getting the kind of benefit I once got. You know, we've always heard, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. That is not mathematically accurate. If you keep doing what you've always done, you are going to get less and less return on that investment because it's not taxing you like it once would. Whether it's core training or cardio training or whatever, it's amazing how you can get the body to a certain point, and your body, as Brian will tell you, is perfectly content to stay there and might even be happier if you lowered the requirement that you've put on your body. But
Yeah.
that's your body trying to conserve its energy and reduce injuries and all that sort of stuff. What do we know for certain, Brian? The human body
Yes.
is capable of
It's highly adaptable.
highly
Yep.
adaptable. You can give it all kinds of challenges. Please be incremental in your expectations. But nevertheless, you can keep on raising the bar and your body will continue to rise to that occasion and do what needs to be done.
So in the initial, I love this conversation because what Anja described, I go through all the time. So in the initial one, that was the descriptive part.
yeah.
And then the
Mhm.
4 questions will move her up in terms of the descriptive had a certain predictability there, right? But then
Well,
it
here's the thing.
becomes prescriptive.
The descriptive part is what we're doing right now. Based on where your
Okay.
change rate is, I can tell you a lot about how you're thinking, feeling, behaving, operating around this particular activity.
Okay.
The second one is how engaged are you in doing that? And that's basically looking at this layer. I can tell you how engaged you are. Because by the way, it's perfectly, in fact, more often than not, you're going to find people have very high levels of ability and are doing things that have relatively low levels of challenge. So they're way down here and people go like, well, if they got the ability and they do it so well, of course they're engaged. No. In fact, I'm going to drop out of engagement as my perceived ability goes up and perceived challenge goes down. My engagement is going to suffer. Now, going back to what Anja said a while ago about, it's about motivation. Long ago, I would send out these things called shock sheets to get prospective clients' attention. And back in my heyday, everyone was talking about motivation, motivation, motivation. And so I always have to draw attention to me by being provocative or whatever. And I said, well, motivation is not the problem, discipline is. So if I want someone who's going to be a good athlete, is it more important for me as their trainer to keep them motivated or to keep them disciplined?
Yeah, discipline.
Discipline in the long run. Anja continues to do it, not because she's motivated, but because she's disciplined. And by the way, a highly disciplined person is likely to be very motivated, far more likely than a highly motivated person is likely to be disciplined.
Mhm.
Right. And so ultimately, discipline is what we're trying to do. We use motivation as a tool to help an individual develop a habit, a routine. And usually the thought is that takes a few weeks to actually build when it comes to something behavioral like you're talking about. But once you get there, once I've motivated you to, come on, let's go to the gym, let's do blah, blah, blah. Now it's normal for you to go to the gym. The discipline is there. But even that discipline is going to come down if their challenge doesn't stay sufficiently high enough to keep you in
Right.
the growth mode that
I
you.
tend to find also, T, that the discipline aspect seems to offer more in terms of the adaptability, because the
Mhm.
word literally means to learn. So like from, what Anjo's offered, like I gamify my workouts all the
Yep,
time.
yep,
So I
yep, yep.
used to do like an hour and a half, but I don't necessarily have an hour and a half all the time. So now I gamified it to where I break them up,
Yep,
work out early in the morning, then once
yep,
at
yep,
night
yep, yep,
that
yep. You
helps
got to play the
support
game.
sleep. Yeah, so
Right.
I kind of and I write them down. Like I know exactly how many workouts I do per year.
Yep. These are all tools of self-management. And if we looked at the upgrade maneuvers, you would see that what you've just done when you write it down is boost accountability. Anything, so that's an upgrade maneuver. And so, yeah, it's all going to end up getting back to this matter of discipline in the long run. If you want long-term sustained behavioral change, it's about discipline coming into play. And I always throw this to the audience. If you got to have surgery, would you rather be operated on by a highly motivated surgeon or a highly disciplined surgeon? You
Yeah.
pick. You're going for a haircut. Do you want a highly motivated stylist or a highly
clears it
disciplined
right up.
stylist? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
It's
good.
like, no. I'm going to pick discipline. Okay, at a governmental level. Do I want to be defended by a military that's highly disciplined or highly motivated?
Hmm.
I want them to be disciplined. I don't want them to
Yeah.
be motivated to go out there and look for trouble. No, just stay ready to do what needs to be done. I don't want our government to be highly motivated. I want them to be highly disciplined. I don't,
Yes.
it's not going to be a situation where I'm going to choose motivated over disciplined. Motivation is a tool, a technique for helping people develop discipline.
Got it.
So once they got the
Interesting.
discipline, they don't need to be motivated anymore. It's kind of optional. Like, okay, if we go to the gym and Anja's there to do where she is right now, she's there to do whatever her core training, her whatever training happens to be. And I come along and I say, well, before you do that, let's all have a motivational cheer. I'm just going like, I don't need a motivational cheer. I need you to step out of the way.
Hear
Right.
this and let me through.
Right?
Right.
Don't waste my time. Don't do whatever. So even you would find that motivational behavior unnecessary when you've achieved discipline.
So T, would you say that discipline would, I'm thinking of those 4 questions that we just reviewed earlier. Like you can look at that with a sense of honesty.
Yeah,
and
so let's
truth, and
go back to
then
those. The first 2 are more descriptive. The second one about how engaged also starts to tip a little bit into predictive. So because I know if you're not engaged, it's not going to turn out all that well. I also know you're more likely as far as being able to answer question 3, how likely are you to follow through and do what needs to be done? That can also be achieved by someone who has a high level of productive tension and a high level of drive. So anyone who's plotting here, as far as those activities are concerned, is much more likely to follow through and get the task done, particularly if they labeled it as important. So that whole idea about getting it all done is ultimately going to look at 3 of these variables. But that last one, what type and level of support is this person going to require? I can tell you by looking at Anja's plotting right now. In fact, I'll do it as a question for you guys. Do you believe that Anja needs a lot of support and a lot of different kinds of support to get her to go do her core training?
No.
No. And so I don't need to do anything. So what type and level of support is necessary? I can say she currently is plotting in a place where her discipline, her choice, her intentionality is taking care of this issue for itself. So I just need to make sure that boundaries are not placed in her way, or obstacles are not placed in her way. And I would, always say, never forget that natural movement is down grid. So while you're okay today, and maybe for the foreseeable future, sooner or later, you're going to slip down grid if nothing else changes. So please, on occasion, change things, do an upgrade maneuver. So the upgrade, increase the standards. Those are the metrics. So the amount of weight, the amount of time, the number of reps, whatever, change the task, do kind of a different core workout training, keep it interesting. Awaken emotions, I don't think would be necessary, but we could, depending on who the person is, ask about what are their real motivations. Sorry, I used that word, but their motivations for doing this physical stuff to begin with. Is it to live a healthier life? Is it because they're getting ready to fit into some outfit for some event? Do I need to do that? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But boosting accountability, maybe that's what you need to do, to just say, as long as you are keeping track of doing it or not doing it, holding yourself accountable, you're going to have a very powerful early warning system about whether or not this. If you go like, well, no, I go every day because I go every day. And by the way, I go with Tom, so I kind of have a built-in accountability partner, then I don't need to worry about all that. So maybe it really is just a matter of the upgrade maneuvers that would be appropriate for Anja's situation would be to always look at ways to increase standards. Hang on just a second. Finishing up the call, I'll call you back. Yeah, to do that, increase the standard or just mix it up so you don't get bored with whatever it is you're doing. That's all I would say you need to be conscious of.
And
only
I
other support that I don't know if support is the right word, but as I am with myself, is a recovery strategy. Like, how do you calm down putting your body through
Exactly.
that physical?
But
So that,
here's
yeah.
the issue. That's a different activity. And
Ah,
so if you were putting together your own change grid, or I was your coach helping you put together a change grid, this idea about exercise, this is one of probably a dozen or more things that
Got
just
it.
could and should put on our activity list, recovery being one of them.
Got it.
So, we need a robust activity list. We're not looking for just one. We're usually looking for a dozen and a half to really do a good job of exploring a particular, activity on the change grid. Or exploring a particular activity. Okay, so we're way over time, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand where I've left off this idea about it's great to come up with some sort of a solution set. And it's great to even phrase those as activities that need to be done. But what if all those activities are down in apathy, or they're up in stress, or I've got one that's too far out grid, and whatever the case may be? Do you guys understand what I mean when I say this is where the real work can now begin?
Oh, yeah.
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 Yep. All right. So obviously we need to be playing with this for the next few sessions, but you know why I'm doing this. Those who have system access, I would encourage you when you get to the yellow step to go ahead and go online and use that feature of the online system. Those of you who don't have online access, again, we did this for, good grief, 2 decades or longer as a paper and pencil tool. So there's no reason why you can't continue to do it on paper and pencil. So that being said, if you want to have your own online account, I'm not going to tell you no. So there you go. All right, with that, any final questions, comments?
No, good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. Again, you're all invited to the Circle of Brilliance calls tomorrow and Thursday, and otherwise we'll pick up where we left off next time. So thanks everybody. Bye for now.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
I thank you.